You are driving across a bridge, and suddenly, without warning, your mind flashes an image of swerving off the edge. You are holding a newborn baby, and a thought appears, what if you dropped them? You are standing at the top of a staircase, and for one fraction of a second your brain whispers, what if you jumped? You did not choose that thought. You did not want it. And the moment it appeared, you felt a wave of horror, confusion, and shame so powerful it almost convinced you that you were broken. But here is what no one ever told you. That thought does not mean what you think it means. In fact, it might mean the exact opposite. Welcome to one of the most misunderstood corners of the human mind. Psychologists have a name for these intrusive thoughts. They call them ego-dystonic experiences, thoughts that feel completely alien to your values, your identity, and everything you believe yourself to be. And research consistently shows that over 90% of people have them. Not 90% of people with mental illness, 90% of all people. The person sitting beside you on the train. The doctor who treated you last week. The parent who seems to have everything together. All of them, at some point, have had a thought that horrified them. The difference between those people and the ones who suffer is not the thought itself. It is what they do with it afterward. Psychologist Stanley Rachman at the University of British Columbia spent decades studying intrusive thoughts, and what he found fundamentally changed how clinicians understand the human mind. He discovered that the content of an intrusive thought is almost never a reflection of desire. It is a reflection of fear. Your brain does not generate these images because it wants them to happen. It generates them because it is desperately trying to protect you from something it perceives as dangerous. The thought is a warning light, not a wish. Think about how your mind works for a moment. Your brain is a prediction machine. Every second of every day it is scanning your environment, modeling possible futures, running simulations of what could go wrong. This is what kept your ancestors alive, the ability to imagine a predator before it appeared, the ability to mentally rehearse danger so that when danger came, the body was already prepared. That same system is still running in you right now, and sometimes, in its frantic attempt to keep you safe, it generates worst-case scenarios that feel absolutely real images so vivid and so disturbing that your nervous system responds as if they were actual intentions, rather than simulated threats. This is the cruelty of intrusive thoughts. The brain cannot always tell the difference between a real plan and a simulated fear, so it sounds the alarm. Your heart rate increases. Your palms sweat. A wave of guilt floods your chest, and your mind immediately begins interrogating itself. Why did I think that? What does that mean about me? Am I capable of something terrible? And in that interrogation, in that desperate attempt to understand the thought and push it away, you accidentally do something that makes everything worse. You give it power. Psychiatrist Beck, one of the founders of cognitive behavioral therapy, identified a pattern he called cognitive fusion, the tendency to treat a thought as if it were a fact, as if thinking something makes it real or makes it a reflection of your true character. This is the trap. The moment you begin arguing with the thought, analyzing it, trying to understand where it came from, you are feeding it. You are signaling to your brain that this particular thought is important enough to engage with, and your brain, the tireless prediction machine that it is, takes that signal as a cue to generate more of them. The research on thought suppression makes this painfully clear. Psychologist Daniel Wegner at Harvard ran a now famous experiment, asking participants to think about anything at all, but not to think about a white bear. What happened? White bear. White bear. White bear. The more forcefully a person tried to suppress a thought, the more aggressively it returned. Wegner called this the ironic process theory. The mental effort required to suppress a thought requires you to monitor for that thought constantly, which means you are always, in a very real sense, thinking about the thing you are trying not to think about. So if the thought is not a desire, and fighting it makes it worse, what is actually happening when your darkest thoughts appear? Psychologist Salkovskis at the University of Oxford has spent years working with patients who are tormented by intrusive thoughts, particularly those with obsessive-compulsive disorder, where intrusive thoughts become so loud and so persistent that they begin to organize a person's entire life around avoiding them. What Salkovskis found is that the people most disturbed by intrusive thoughts are not disturbed because they are dangerous. They are disturbed precisely because they care so deeply about the opposite. The person terrified by a thought about harming someone they love is, in most cases, the person most devoted to that person's safety. The thought feels monstrous precisely because their values are the inverse of what the thought suggests. This is the paradox at the heart of intrusive thinking. The darkness of the thought is a direct measure of how much you care about the light. Your mind is not broken. It is not signaling something evil buried beneath the surface. It is doing something far more human and far more ancient. It is running every possible simulation of danger, including the ones that involve you. Because from an evolutionary perspective, the most unpredictable threat in your environment was always the one you could not fully control: yourself, your own impulses, your own body's capacity for error. And so your brain, in its endless vigilance, includes you in its threat modeling. It asks not only what could go wrong out there, but what could go wrong in here. Understanding this does not make the thoughts disappear, but it changes their meaning entirely. When you see that an intrusive thought is a symptom of a vigilant, caring mind rather than a corrupt one, something begins to shift. Instead of interrogating the thought, you can observe it. Instead of arguing with it, you can acknowledge it and let it pass the way a cloud passes across a sky, noticed, but not chased. Acceptance and commitment therapy, developed by psychologist Stephen Hayes, builds an entire framework around this principle. You do not need to resolve every dark thought. You do not need to understand it or defeat it. You need only to recognize that you are the sky, not the cloud. The thought moves through you. It is not you. There is also something important to understand about when intrusive thoughts become loudest. Research consistently shows that they intensify during periods of high stress, sleep deprivation, and emotional exhaustion. Not because stress makes you more dangerous, because a tired, overwhelmed brain loses the regulatory capacity to quickly dismiss threat simulations, and those simulations linger longer than they should. The thought that passes in a fraction of a second when you are rested becomes something you carry for hours when you are depleted. This is your mind telling you something urgent, not about your character, but about your state. The darkest thought you have ever had was not a confession. It was a signal. It was your mind, working exactly as it was designed to work, scanning the horizon of all possible threats, including the ones that live closest to what you love most. And in that scanning, in that vigilance, in that refusal to leave any corner of your existence unexamined, it revealed something about you that no amount of shame could hide. You care, deeply, about the people around you, about the world you move through, about the kind of person you are, and the kind of harm you are capable of preventing. The thought did not come from darkness. It came from the same place everything worth protecting always comes from. You are driving across a bridge. Your mind flashes an image of the edge. And now you know. That flash is not a threat. It is proof of how hard your brain is working to bring you home.